Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your tangled yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Inktobertangles 2025 Itty Bitty Kitty series. This is week 5 and it is our final one of the series. I know, I can't believe we're already here, but let's talk about the things that we're going to need for class today. I'm going to be working with a Micron PN Pen, a graphite pencil, and a blending stump. If you don't have a blending stump, grab a Q-tip out of the bathroom and you'll be just fine. I have a Jelly Roll 10 that I'll be working with. This is from Sakura. It is a white gel pen. And I will also be using the Identi Pen from Sakura, and this will be for pooling ink in our cat here. You know me, I am a Prismacolor girl, so grab your Prismacolor pencils. We're going to have a lot of fun with this one, and if you don't have Prismacolor pencils, don't worry about it. Just grab whatever you have and play along. I will be working on a tile that is 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. If you don't have a tile that size, grab your sketchbook, make a square with the same measurements, and you can play along with us. With that said, let's get started with the Itty Bitty Kitty final series. Many of you know that I like to do a little centering exercise before we get started. Let's go ahead and take a comfortable seated position here. Allow your spine to grow nice and tall but not hard, allowing your shoulders to melt away from your ears. You can let your hands rest in your lap, and if you're okay with it, you can allow your eyes to close for a moment. Letting your attention come to your breath here. As you breathe in through the nose, noticing the coolness of the breath. And as you exhale through the mouth, noticing the heat of the breath. As you inhale through the nose, feel the body expanding with breath. And as you exhale through the mouth, feeling the release in the body. And one more time here, taking in a nice deep breath. And slowly exhaling it out. And just staying with your breath for the next few moments here. And as we breathe, I'm going to share a quote, and this is from Mary Beth Quinn. And she says, "The day that I decided my life was magical, there was suddenly magic all around me." And I like to think of our cat, our mascot for this entire series, as a symbol to look for the magical things in your life. They could be really small things. You know, I look into my dog's eyes every day, and I'm always grateful for the time that I get to spend with my pups. So it could be that, or spending time with a friend, or being out in nature, just experiencing magic all around you and offering gratitude for that. Let's go ahead and take one more deep breath in right here. And let it go with a sigh. And then when you feel ready, wiggling in your fingertips and wiggling in your toes and adding vision back into your practice. Okay, I've picked up my graphite pencil here, and we are going to start by building a string. Now remember, my tile is 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in from the corner about an inch, and I'm just going to make a little dot. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, coming in about an inch and make a dot. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to draw a nice column going all the way down the page. I'll do the same thing on the other side, just building a nice column, just like so. Now once I have that, I'm going to also go ahead and start to do a very narrow border going right across or right next to that first line. I'll do the same thing on the, and I'm doing it on the inside of the column just so that you're aware. So that you end up with something that looks a little bit like this. And this is going to be our string for today's class. So I've gone ahead and I've picked up my pen here, and I'm just going to go ahead and ink in my 2 lines that are part of the string here, just like so. And then I'll go over to the other side and I'll do the same thing. And this is going to leave us with some really nice spaces in which to work in with our tangles. So you can see that that's how I'm going to use it. So go ahead and ink in yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start with a tangle called Owlpeek. So Owlpeek is a really fun tangle to play with, and I've definitely kind of gone off the rails with this one, but I want to show you what the foundation is of it, and then we'll break that foundation. So Owlpeek is a nice narrow X, and then she closes it off at the bottom. And when she has that, she does these nice radiating lines, almost like rays of the sun, going through the triangle, just like so. Now I'm going to turn it on its side and it'll kind of look like a bow tie. And I'm going to do an S-like shape that's going to intersect right in the middle, just like so. Now once I have that, I'm going to give this a little bit of a fescue or a teardrop shape on the inside. I'll go ahead and I'll turn it back right side up. Let's go ahead and zoom in on it so you can really see what I got going on here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make these lines that are going to connect to the triangles again. And that is Owlpeek, and she goes ahead and she pools her ink into it. Now I'm going to do a variation on this thing because there's a couple of other tangles that would go really, really nicely inside of this piece. And so we are going to put, I think it's called Pokeart, inside of Owlpeek here. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to draw a column and we're going to play with this just a little bit. So I've got a nice column here. I'm just going to close it off at the bottom and at the top. I'm going to pick up my graphite pencil here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the column in half. Now, just like Owlpeek, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with an X, but we're going to have it a little bit narrower. So it'll look a little something like this. I'm just going to come in from the sides just a little bit, and then I'm going to line it up at the bottom here, and I'm just going to make a nice X. Now, once I have those 2 little dots here, I can also use that down at the bottom here. And I'm going to go ahead and do another X. And you can see that it develops this really beautiful monotangle in the center. Now, normally we would be doing those radiating lines inside of the X, but we're going to do something a little bit different with those in a minute. So let's just start by coming into the center here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do an aura inside of the diamond, and you can see that it's a very narrow aura. I'm going to go ahead and do another aura right here, and another aura right here. Now remember how we kind of made this look like a bow tie? You can see there's my little bow tie right here. I'm going to come away from the edge just a little bit, and I'm going to do a nice S curve that's going to go all the way through and bring those in. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of weight on the back side, and when I come in I'll narrow it out, and the same thing over here, just coming in and giving it a little bit of weight on either side. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side, so we're coming away from the edge a little bit. Go right through, make your S, you can do your little teardrops, and then we're going to give it a little weight, connect at the bottom, give it a little weight, and connect over at the top. Now, once I have that, I'm going to turn it right side up, and we're going to learn a really fun tangle, and this is called Pokeart, and this is by Henriette Robin. And Pokeart looks a little something like this, where she has these little leaf-like shapes, and then she puts a little heart in the center, just like so. And that is Pokeart. And so what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to come into the center here, and I'm going to do those little leaf-like pieces, and then I'm going to just let a little line run down the center and create that little heart shape right in the center there. I'm going to turn the piece, and I'm going to do the same thing again. So all I'm doing is creating a little leaf-like shape. Using that center line, I'm going to come up and kiss the other heart, and I'm going to kiss it on the other side, and then I'll go in and I'll pool my ink or my pencil marks in the center. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Just creating that little heart shape and then pooling. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm just turning it around. Nice leaf-like shape. And then once again, creating that heart and pulling my pencil lines in there. Now remember how we had those really nice little diagonal lines that were connecting to the S? Well, we're going to do this slightly different. We're going to let it come out from the diamond itself. And so what this is going to look like is we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go down, let it touch the side, and down, let it touch the side. We'll go up and up, come down and come down, and then up and up. So basically we have a very similar shape where we have that hexagon type feeling coming in here, but we're emanating from the diamond instead of emanating from the S. Okay? And so that's how we're going to play with this particular tangle. So take a moment to play with this, and then I'm just going to walk you step by step through it on our piece. I'm going to turn my piece so that my lines are now horizontal here. I'm going to look for the place where I think the middle is at the top, and I'm going to do a line that comes down. I'm going to lift up my pencil but let the line continue, so that now I've divided these two spaces. And you can see I'm slightly off, but that's okay. It'll be just fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the top, and just a skosh away from the edge, I'm going to make a dot here and a dot here. I'm going to let those start to line up right here and right here. And you want to make sure that they're not too far in, because your diamond will get really narrow. So you just want to just a skosh off the side. I'm going to let this line up at the bottom, and I'll let this one line up at the bottom. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make an X. I'm going to go ahead and let those lines continue to come down. So now I've got two narrow X's in my piece here. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just turn the piece on its side here, and I will start to create those little S patterns. Now remember, I'm coming away from the edge just a little bit, and I'm going to start to make my S. It's going to intersect in the center, and then I'm going to let it complete a little bit away from the edge. I'll go ahead and I'll do my little teardrop shapes. Same thing over here, just a nice narrow S. Here comes my little teardrop shape and my other teardrop shape. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and give it some weight on the back side, let it connect at the center. Same thing over here, a little bit of weight, let it connect up at the top. Same thing here. So a little bit of weight and a little bit of weight. Once I have that, I'm going to start to turn it right side up again. I'm going to give this a little bit more intensity there so that you can see it. And then finally what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to do my auras. And you can see that I'm really doing some nice narrow auras here. Nice and narrow. Nice and narrow. Same thing here. And same thing here. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So just going right in, building out by doing our 2 dots nice and close to the corners here. Let those dots drop down. Same thing over here and same thing over here. Nice narrow X's. Same thing over here, just letting it drop right down and drop right down. Once I've got that, I'm going to turn my piece on its side and I'm going to do the S's. Give it a little bit of weight. And then once again, coming in, nice narrow S. Give it a little bit of a teardrop, a little weight. And then once I have that, I'll come back in and I'll start to do my auras. So very narrow aura of the diamonds. Just like so. And just like so. Once I've got those the way that I want them, I'm going to go ahead and start to ink them in. And you can see this side's a little bit bigger than this side. It's not a big deal. So all I'm going to do is just start by building my X's. And this is a great way to relearn a tangle. Anytime you're doing an overdraw, it always helps to relearn that tangle. Turning it on its side, working with the S's. Build in those little teardrops. Working on the back sides. Same thing over here. Get that little teardrop in. Little weight on the back. And then once again, turning it, giving it its aura. You can see that I'm really taking my time with those aura lines. The slower you go, the more beautiful your line work will be. Very meditative. Just really be with each shape. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. You go ahead and do yours as well. Let's bring Pokeart into our piece here. I'm going to just pick up my graphite pencil once again, and I'm just going to use a little string line that's going to divide the diamond in half. Just like so, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And you can still see that my string is still here from when we were dividing the space there. So let's bring Pokeart into this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to start by bringing that leaf-like shape or seed-like shape into the piece. Now you can see that where that horizontal line is, my goal is to get the two arches to touch that horizontal line. Now once I have that, I'm going to turn the piece again, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to start with the leaf-like shape coming in, and then I'm going to go to the center and let it touch that other heart just a little bit, and let it touch the heart just a little bit. And it almost gives you this beautiful little diamond-like shape. And if you want to adjust your heart so that it does get that diamond-like shape, you can. I'm going to go ahead and turn my tiles so that when I come up to the top, I'm going to do the same thing. It's just a leaf-like shape and a leaf-like shape, and then once again, a little heart arch at the top, and then I'll go down to the bottom and do the same thing. So just a little bit of a leaf-like shape on each side, and then I'm going to go ahead and let that arch touch the edge and touch the edge so that you end up with that really cool pattern in the center. I'm going to pick up my pencil, or rather my pen, and I'm going to start to ink it in. So all I'm doing is just starting to bring in that leaf-like shape, and then I'll do the arch of the heart right there in the center, and then I'll go ahead and I'll turn my piece, coming in, creating that leaf-like shape once again, and once again creating that heart-like arch. That time I got the really nice diamond in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pool my ink into that diamond and just add a little bit on the edges. And you can see that that really develops a really beautiful tangle in there. All I'm going to do is work with these. And just let it touch the edge. And then you can pool your ink into your edges. So it turns out that that Pokeart is a really fun little tangle that is a great little filler in these kind of small spaces. Reminds me a little bit of Triple E, has that kind of filler feeling to it as well. I'm just developing that heart. Now I'm also going to pull my ink into where my S's are. Just like so. And just like so. And I'll go ahead and I'll do that one as well. So we're going to do the exact same thing on the opposite side. If you want to rewind and watch it again, you can do that, or you can just go by heart. Now the final component to this is that we're going to make those little hexagon shapes. And you can see that on either side of the diamond I still have that little horizontal line that's going through here. And so what I'm going to do is just from that diamond shape, I'm going to make a nice diagonal that's going to go upward on each side, and then it's going to go downward, and we're going to get these two little triangle pieces on either side of the diamond that's on the center. Up top I'm going to do the same thing, just a nice little line, and the same thing over here, just a nice little line. Same thing's going to happen here, where I'm just going to go up and up. And that's going to develop that really nice little horizontal, or rather hexagon shape that we had in the original piece. It's just that we're connecting from the diamond instead of connecting from the S. So it's just a little variation on it, but I think it's a fun variation. And it works quite nicely. You know, when I look at this, I almost think of like a cello. It kind of looks like a cello. To me, or it has like a musical feel to it. And all I'm going to do is just go in here and start to do a nice aura inside. I'll do an aura right here and an aura right here. And then same thing over here, just a nice little aura and a nice little aura. And then I'll pool my ink up at the top because I have a little bit more space in there. And I'll do the same thing over here. And then I'm going to go ahead and pool my ink in here, and this is going to start to give this a really nice graphic feel, but what it's also going to do is it's going to give a nice nod back to the cat when we bring in our cat. I'm going to bring an extra aura in here because I feel like I've lost the edge there, and I'll do the same thing here. Just feel like it's just not enough, so I'm going to give it a little extra there. So you can see, look how pretty that is when you add in those little black pieces on the side. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. You go ahead and do yours as well. This is such an elegant tangle, and I'm really looking forward to showing the shading part of it, but I still want to get the rest of the composition in here. So let's go ahead and pick up our graphite pencils. I'm going to come away from the bottom of the piece about an inch and just make a little dot. And then I'll turn my piece and just give myself a little bit of a rectangle to work in right below. So you can see that this is the space that I'm going to be working in. Now, somebody was mentioning on our Facebook page that they had seen a class where I had done a pumpkin, and I have done classes where I've done pumpkins in the past, and I'm going to do this pumpkin for you guys now, and we're going to have our cat sit on top of the pumpkin. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to use my graphite pencil, and we'll zoom in on it. We're going to start with kind of a, I'm going to say like a soft oval shape, just like so. Once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to go right back to that same point, and I'm going to do some C curves coming off of the side of this oval shape. I'll go ahead and I'll do another one on the other side, and then another one on the other side as well. And I really want it to kind of touch the edge. I'm trying to fill the space as much as I can. Now, to build the top of the pumpkin here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to just do like a little curved triangle, and then it's going to rejoin right at the top. So go ahead, draw in your pumpkin, and then when we come back, we're going to bring in the cat, and we're going to bring in one of my favorite tangles. This is called Bownus that we're going to be working with, and it's by my friend Angie Gittles. So to bring in the cat for this piece, we want to make him look like he's either sitting on top of the pumpkin or sitting in front of the pumpkin. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the halfway point inside of where this rectangle is, and I'm just going to make a little line that goes about at the halfway point. Once I have that, let's go ahead and zoom in on that so you can really see. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do kind of a loose version of flux here. It's going to be kind of a more widened version of flux. So it's just going to come up, over, and down, and you can see the way that it's starting to land on the pumpkin. It doesn't quite close. And then I will go ahead and I will add his little haunches on either side. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the head of the cat, and all it is just a nice circle. And then I'll go ahead and I'll start to bring in that little neckline just by doing a little bit of a curve there. I'm going to go ahead and give him his ears. And then I think, that's really going to do it for our cat right now. We're just going to leave him kind of open. And the reason for that is because we are going to bring in the tangle Bownus into the piece. So Bownus is such a fun tangle. And many of you may have done a class with me that had some cardinals in it. I think it was last year or the year before where we used Bownus as part of our string. So Bownus looks like this. It's an orb. And then what you do is you create these very narrow little seed-like shapes that come off of the side of it. I'm going to do about 5 of them. And then once you have those, what you do is you come out from the one that's before this one right here, and you're just going to keep it nice and wide. And then all I'm going to do is a nice little dip and let it connect. I'm going to turn my tile clockwise here. I'm going to use this one as a starting point, just coming out nice and narrow there, and then a little dip and let it connect. Turning the tile, starting on the last seed, keep it nice and narrow as you're coming away, and a little dip, let it connect, and then once again, coming off of here, little dip, let it connect. Super fun, super easy, beautiful for the holidays. This is a great one to do. And then one of the things that I like to do with Bownus is just bring some little ribbon down and, just kind of have a little bit of a flair to it. Just like so. And that is Bownus. So go ahead and play with that for a minute, and then we're going to start to bring it to the cat. Let's start to bring Bownus into our piece here. You can see I've erased any lines that were in the neck area of the cat, and I'm going to zoom in on this here. We're going to start by taking our graphite pencils, and right along the neckline here, I'm going to do a nice little orb. Once I've got my orb, I'm going to start creating those little seed-like shapes. And you're going to see that I'm going to go over some lines, and that's just fine. I'm really just using the cat as a backdrop for this tangle here. So you can see there I've got the beginnings of Bownus. I'll come in, coming away from the edge, nice little dip and connect, turning the tile, come away, nice little dip and connect. Turn your tile, always using the last seed for the first seed that you're going after. Turning. Here we are, just coming in and connecting. And one more time right here, just keeping it nice and narrow in there and connecting. So there you can see my cat is wearing the bow. And then I'm going to start by bringing down some of those nice little ribbons. My mom was a really great gift wrapper. She could just, oh my God, I can't wrap a gift to save my life, but she was amazing at it. And I just loved watching her wrap gifts. She was just, it was an art form with her. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up my pen, and I'm going to start to ink in Bownus. And the way that I always do it is I just retrace my steps. So I'm just retracing, turning the tile as I go. And then I'm going to go ahead and start to bring in those little offshoots, and you can see that I stay close to that first offshoot. Always stay close to it so that you get that nice thick ribbon to work its way around. And right there as well. Super duper fun. And then I'm going to go ahead and let that draw down, and let this draw down. So go ahead and put Bownus into your piece here, and then when we come back, we're going to work with the silhouette of the cat. So I've got my pen in my hand here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow the silhouette of the cat. And you can see as soon as I get near Bownus, I lift up my pen and work around what I have. Same thing here, going across just like so. And you know, this could also be for a Christmas card. If you wanted to do a Christmas card with a cat, it's always fun to do. Okay, so now that I've got that silhouette the way that I want it, I'm going to erase out the internal haunch lines, just to get rid of them. I'm just focusing on the silhouette of the cat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink in my my pumpkin here, and the reason for this is because I really don't want to have any confusion about where the cat begins and ends. So you can see that I'm really taking my time. I love working with these pumpkins. They're so fun to shade. And this really is in keeping with Zentangle, the ISCO. You know, whenever we say to people, you know, if you can draw these letters, you can do Zentangle, and this is really part of that. I really do feel that way. So let's go ahead and pick up our pooling pen. I happen to have in my hand the Staedtler one, but you can also use your Identi Pen too. And I want you to be very mindful when you're working around our Bownus here. So you can see that I'm going to look for these little peaks and valleys inside of where Bownus is and fill those in so that I don't have any confusion about where the cat is. So you can see that I'm just being super, super mindful around where Bownus is. And then I can start pooling my ink into the other areas so that we bring the cat to life. I just love that tangle so much. It's one of my favorites. And with the holiday season coming up, I just get really excited about it. There are certain tangles that are just really fun ones to revisit, and this one is always one that I love to revisit. So you can see that I'm starting to work around. And you can see with the way that I'm working with that pen, I'm doing little circles. And when you work with little circles, you have less of a chance of getting that background poking through. And so you can see that it's just little circles as I work. So I'm going to continue to fill in around the cat. Now remember, you don't want the pumpkin to get filled in. So all I'm going to do is just work around the stump of the pumpkin. And then I'll start to pool my ink into the rest of the cat bottom in here. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to work on. You continue to do yours, and then when we come back, we are going to add in a tail if you have room for it. But just have fun with inking this in. For me, pooling ink can be such a meditative process, and so I encourage you to just really get into the zen of inking in this cat. All right? Have fun with it. If you have room for a little bit of a tail for your cat, all you can do in here is you can go ahead and do a little question mark and just let it reconnect towards the bottom of your cat. You can see that I was using a little graphite pencil when I did this. And then I'm just going to go in and I'm going to give this a little bit of an aura and let it reconnect. Once I have that, I'll go in with my pen and I'll start to bring in a little bit of that darkness into the tail. And you can embellish the tail however you like. And then I'll go in and I'll pool my ink into the tail itself, and that's going to give this a little bit of flair. So go ahead, have some fun with this, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with the sky just a little bit more. I have my graphite pencil in my hand here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to build a moon around the top of where the cat head is. And so it's just going to look a little bit like this, where I'm just going to do this moon-like shape, and I'm going very, very lightly with my pencil here, because like we did in a couple of classes before, we really are going to go very, very softly with this moon. So you can see that I'm just softly bringing it in. It's not a perfect circle, but it does the job, and that's really what we're looking for. So go ahead, finish up yours, and then when we come back, it's time for color, baby. If we were in the same room with each other, I would be handing out candy right about now. I usually hand out those Dove chocolates, and since it's Halloween, you deserve chocolate, so go get yourself some chocolate. All right, so let's talk about the colors that we're going to be using today. I'm going to be working with Daliah Purple, which is PC1009. I'll also be working with Violet, which is PC932. And then I'm going to be working with Yellow Ochre, which is PC942. Now, if you don't have Prismacolor pencils, don't worry about it. Just grab a really nice purple, almost like a grapey purple, a dark purple, and then kind of a mustardy yellow. That's really what I'm looking for here. Now, I will also be working with a little bit of the Limepeel green, which is PC1005. And this is just kind of like a chartreusey green. You could use just a nice light green if you don't have Prismacolor. So the way that we're going to start is we're going to be working with our Pokeart. And I'm just going to zoom in on this here. And I'm going to start with a little bit of the Limepeel green, and you'll want to also have a graphite pencil handy. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to work with these little seed-like shapes first and just dust these in. And you'll notice that I'm leaving a little bit of a light source in the center. I'm going to take a little bit of my graphite pencil, give it a little bit of a dusting on the points here. And then I'm going to go ahead again with that Limepeel green and push that graphite around. What I love about the graphite with the Limepeel green is that it slightly mutes the color, or it deadens the color a little bit so that it isn't as vivid, which is in keeping kind of with the Halloween color scheme here. Once I've had a chance to do that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of my Daliah Purple. This is the lighter purple, and I'm going to start by just dusting in a little bit of that Daliah Purple. I'm going very, very lightly with that pencil. I'm barely touching the page. Once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit of the violet, and because the violet has so much pigment in it, I don't have to worry about pushing hard on this pencil. It'll just go nice and it'll give this a little bit of richness is what it's going to do. So you can see that it's already starting to make that Daliah Purple glow a little bit, and I really am hardly touching the page. You can see that I'm just letting it hug that little black line right there, and then I'm going to pick up that Daliah Purple again, and very, very softly I'm going to blur the line of demarcation by doing little teeny tiny circles. softening it up. Love that purple heart. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up just a little bit of my white pencil. This is Pc1005 and this comes in the Prisma color set. If you have another color set, grab your white color pencil and it works as a wonderful blender. And you can see what I'm doing is just going right where that lightest purple is meeting the darkest purple and just kind of blurring the two into each other, and look at how pretty that is. So what I'm going to do as I zoom out here is I'm going to work in all of my hearts all the way throughout the piece and get just that going. Okay, so this might be my favorite part in terms of the shading of this particular tangle here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the Daliah Purple. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right in here. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this. Now you can see that the pencil is really well sharpened up. I'm going to lay the side of the pencil down and very, very lightly, I'm hardly touching the page at all, just letting it have a very light dusting right at the bottom of each of these diamonds in here. Now once I've had an opportunity to do that, I'm going to pick up the Yellow Ochre. Now I want you to be mindful not to rub the two into each other too much or too heavily, because it will kind of start to brown out. So you want to be careful not to overdo it or not to be overzealous with it, but just to kind of let it run over the top of it nice and light, almost as if it's transitioning from the purple into the yellow like a sunset. So I'm just getting in there and letting it kind of run through. Love the way that that looks. It's so, so pretty. And then I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that violet right at the bottom points. And remember, you don't have to push hard with that violet. It's so heavily pigmented, it'll just add a little bit of richness of color. So you can see here that what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that Daliah Purple and break up that line of demarcation and also warm up that violet a little bit. But then you'll also start to notice that as I get closer to where that yellow is, I'm barely touching the page. I'm just letting it kind of fade out. So same thing in here. Here's my line of demarcation, just doing a little bit of circle work. And then as I move away from that point, I'm lightening up my pressure on the pencil as I get into where that yellow is, so that it's just barely touching. And look at how that transitions. Isn't that so pretty? I love the way that that looks. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to flip this over and I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm just coming in very, very softly, bringing this in, getting to about the halfway point, barely touching the page with that pencil. Now I'm picking up that light ochre. You can see that it's pretty well sharpened up as well, and I don't have to press hard. I'm just going nice and light, letting these two kind of just bleed into each other. I love the way this looks, especially on this tangle. It just gives the tangle such an interesting feel. We'll come back in with a little bit of that violet. You don't have to push hard, just right in the points. And then once again, a little bit of that Daliah Purple. Here's the line of demarcation, little circles. And as I move away from that line of demarcation, I'm lightening up my touch on the pencil. It's barely touching the page. Same thing over here, lightening up as I move away. Barely touching the page. And so when I flip back, look at how pretty that is. Is that just gorgeous? I just love those colors bleeding into each other. So I'm going to use that same technique all the way throughout. You go ahead and do yours as well. Have fun with this. This is such a fun tangle to work with. Super fun, isn't it? I really hope you're enjoying it too. Alright, so I'm going to let go of the purples and we're going to start to bring in some of our warmer colors into the piece. I'm going to hold on to the light ochre. I have orange in my hand, which is Pc1005, and then I'm also going to be working with the Scarlet Lake, which is Pc923. Now remember, if you're not working with Prismacolors, I'm looking for a warm red and a nice orange here. I'm going to start with that light ochre and we're going to start to work on our pumpkins here. And so what this is going to look like is, you can see I'm pretty well sharpened up. I'm going to work on the side of the pencil and start to rub that color into the page here. You can see that this is really just a foundational color, so I'm not spending a whole heck of a lot of time getting that on there. I'm just using it as a foundation. So you can see that I'm just slowly working my way through and just getting that nice foundation of color in there. Now once I've got that the way that I've been looking for, I'm going to go ahead and let go of that yellow and I'm going to start to pick up a little bit of the orange here. I've got a nice sharp point on that pencil and I'm just going to start to give this a little bit of a shadow on the side. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and come in over here and bring a little shadow in over here, leaving a little bit of lightness in towards that centerpiece. And same thing over here. I would say I'm going halfway through each of these little C curves. Now I'm going to come over to the other side, but I'm going to do it in reverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hug the inside of the piece here and leave a little bit of lightness on the outside edge. I'll do the same thing over here. And then once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that Scarlet Lake. Yep, Scarlet Lake, just making sure. And then I'm going to just add in a really nice shadow right along that black line. So I'm really hugging the line here. Just staying right in there. Pumpkins are so fun to shade. Just getting right in there. And then on this side, I'm going to give this a little bit of intensity on the inner edge. Same thing over here. Once I've got that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that orange again and little circles. Blurring out that line of demarcation here. Remembering to breathe, relax your shoulders. And just really getting into the enjoyment of working with color. Same thing over here, breaking up that line of demarcation. You can see that it's actually pulling that red around, which is so pretty. Love that Scarlet Lake next to the orange. It's just really a good combo there. And then I'll pick up a little bit of that yellow and break up that line of demarcation again. So really just breaking it up. Same thing over here. And look at how pretty that pumpkin is. It really just pops right off the page and brings in this really nice element. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up a little bit of that green and bring the green into the stem here. And once again, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that graphite and blur it out with a little bit of the green. And so that is the way that I'm going to handle the pumpkin today. And I hope that you really love working with it too. I'm going to continue working with the red and the orange and the yellow here. I'm going to come up to where the bow is in Bownus and just start to work with that light ochre, creating this really pretty soft foundation. I'm going to take a little bit of the orange and bring the orange in there about halfway through. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of the red and bring the red into it, just giving it a touch of that pop that we're looking for. I'll pick up a little bit of that orange and then a little bit of the yellow ochre and just blur it out. And that's the way that I'm going to handle the bow. So I'm going to go around to each of these and do the exact same thing. You go ahead and do yours. To finish off Bownus, I'm going to work with those little tassels or little ribbons that are coming down, and you can see that I've picked up the yellow ochre and I'm just lightly shading those in, and then I'll pick up just a little bit of the orange and go about halfway down on the tassels, and then I'll pick up a little bit of that red and give a little bit of red right up at the points that are moving inward. And then you can pick up a little bit of that yellow and just blur them into each other. The other thing that I'm going to do with this is I'm going to pick up just a little bit of the orange here and give this a little bit of interest inside of the bow, and then I'll take a little bit of that red, and you want to make sure that your pencils are good and sharpened up, and that will make that really interesting. Now I will also pick up a little bit of my graphite here, and you're going to see me just doing that from the most internal points of the bow, and then I'll pick up a little bit of the white that I have here, making sure that there's nothing on the white, and then I'll blur it outward, making it so that that graphite is now set, but it also moves because of the white pencil. And I just love the way that that looks. It gives it a really nice pop. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to work with our background. I have in my hand the Cobalt Turquoise, which is Pc1005. This is a very nice teal color that we're going to be working with. You can see that the pencil is pretty well sharpened up, and the way that I'm going to start to work with it is I'm going to start to bring in a little bit of that by bringing the side of the pencil down on the page. You can see that when you work on the side of the pencil, you can make quick business of that background. So I'm just going to do one side of this, and then I'll let you go ahead and do the other side on your own. You can see that I have not removed the graphite lines from my moon. I'm actually using it as a guide here, and I'm just layering in that color around those graphite lines. I just want it to be a really soft moon. So you can see that I'm bringing this in, and even down into the corners in here, I've got that going. Once I have that, I'm going to start to give this a little bit more pressure, and I love working with this particular pencil. It's very moody. The color is very moody, and it's perfect for Halloween. So you can see I've gotten a little bit more intensity down at the bottom, but then as I'm getting closer to the top, I'm starting to lighten up my touch just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and come into this corner right here and give it a little bit of intensity. And then down here, I'm also going to give it a little bit of intensity. Once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to pick back up that white pencil again, and very, very lightly, I'm going to start to blend those colors into each other. And you can see that just by using a little bit of that white pencil, it really starts to get those colors moving. It really softens them up and gives them quite the blur. And it also lets that moon start to come to life as well. Now, many of you know that I do love to make my color pencils look like watercolors, and so you can see that I'm just kind of solidifying up my blending in here. And then once I have that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the light ochre, and I'm going to start to just give it a little bit of randomness here and there of a little bit of that color, and it just gives that kind of really neat spooky feel to the moon. So I'm going to start to work on this side and bring that all the way down. You go ahead and do yours as well. I'm picking up my graphite pencil and my blending stump here, and we're going to bring a little bit of shading into the moon. You can see that my pencil is really well sharpened up here, and what I'm going to do is just very, very softly start to rub some graphite into where the moon is. And you can see that I'm not being overly cautious with it. I'm really just bringing it in and starting to let it take hold around the edges of the moon here. Once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to come in with my little tortillon. And if you don't have one of these, grab a Q-tip out of the bathroom. They work great for shading. And you can see that that already starts to give the moon a really nice feel. Just letting that get in there. And if you want to go back in with a little bit of pressure right along the edge of the moon, you can go back in with a little bit of pressure right over here as well. And then I'll come back in little circles, blurring it out. And getting right in there. And you can see that I'm leaving parts of the moon without any shading on it because I want it to feel luminous. And then if you'd like to, you can pick up your Jelly Roll pen. I have my Jelly Roll pen in my hand here. I'm working with a 10, but you can work with whichever one you like. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a sheen into the side of my moon here. And get right in there. And then you could also go over to the other side and add a little bit over here too, which is really fun. Gives that moon a really nice feeling. The other thing that you can do with your pen is you can come right in to where your hearts are and just add in a little bit of a line with a couple of dots just to get them to have a little bit of interest to them. You're going to see me go ahead and be mindful of where you put your hand when you're working with this because it does tend to smear and smudge, so just be mindful of that. But you can see how pretty that looks, and I'm going to go through all my hearts and do the same thing. Could also add a little dot into your bow, and if you even wanted to bring in a little sheen into your bow, you could bring in a little sheen into your bow as well. So have some fun, play, and I'll see you in a minute. So I added some dots into the areas where I had my triangles, and a couple of dots into the cat tail, and some sheen into where the pumpkin is. And it's so fun to go through and try different things with it. I even did one in black and white and gold, and I thought that that was really pretty to play with. So this is something that you could do by taking your piece that you already have and running it through the copy machine on black and white, and then adding gold into the areas where you have white in your piece. That's always fun to do, just to see it in a different way. And then finally, with the last one, I decided to put a little bat in my moon there, and I thought that that was kind of fun to play with as well. So you could add a little bat just in your moon, which is really, really fun. So I'm going to take a moment and put my chop into my piece here, and your chop is just your initial, and it's an opportunity to pause and offer gratitude for the work that you just did and taking time to take care of yourself. You know, this is one of those things where you're filling up your own spirit with something positive, and creativity is such a great break from our wild world that we're living in. So if you enjoyed the class, please give the class a thumbs up or leave a nice review in the comments section. And even better, hit the subscribe button, and then that way you'll be notified anytime I add a class to my channel here on YouTube. And even the best thing that you can do, share the class with a friend. Anybody that you know that likes Zentangle and wants to try doing some of the Inktober challenge in a composition, this would be great for them. Or if you know somebody that's looking to try using color pencils but doesn't know how, these are great classes for them to learn as well. So share the wealth. And I'd love to see your creations over on our Tangled Yogi Art community page on Facebook. All of our students share their work there, and you know, people do variations on the classes and share their work, and we all learn from it. And you know, it's such a great way to get inspired. So I hope that you'll share your work. All you have to do is just answer a couple of security questions and you're in the group, and we have such a great community. Well, that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks so much for joining me for the Itty Bitty Kitty series. It was so much fun, and I'm wishing you all a very happy and safe Halloween.